Hi everyone, Scrappy Kathy here with the after review of my first organizing project. And what the camera's focused on here, and the most important part of all of this, is organizing this cabinet, which is right beside where I create when I make my videos, and that's my video light. It's turned to illuminate the cabinet, but normally it holds my phone over my pad there, my desk pad. It's also the dining room table, so it gets cleaned up every night. Okay, so if you'll recall what it looked like before, I had this rotating holder with some of my inks, and it also had embossing powders and all kinds of other things, and half my inks were in the hall closet. And so anyway, I have consolidated all my inks. They didn't all fit on this. This is one of those spice racks. It's got a, kind of steps up, and it expands the entire length of my shelf here, which is perfect. So these are my a lot of glimmer mists here, a lot of shimmer sprays from Dilution. So the glimmery stuff is on the front. The plain inks are in the back. I've got some Heidi Swapp Color Shine, which is also glittery. I've got some Adirondack Color Wash and distress sprays back there. Not very many of those. Some distress stains, and a whole bunch of glimmer mist, which I used to use a lot on art journal pages and other things, and I'm going to start playing with those on layouts. I have I bought a few sets of those when a couple of my brick and mortar stores went out of business. They were on sale, and I had used, I think I owned maybe one or two, so I bought a couple sets that were deeply discounted, and I kind of switched gears and haven't used them much. That's my entire collection of all 60 colors of Distress Oxides, the original colors. And as I mentioned in my other video, this space on top is for the new colors that he chooses to come out with. I don't have either of the two new ones, the Crackling Fire or the Robin's Egg Blue. Down here, I've got more inks, my Mr. Huey's inks, which were the first spray inks I ever owned. And then I've got some Hero Arts neon colors. I've got my Vicki Boutin color wheel. And these are my liquid watercolors by Pink Fresh. And then over here, I have my Nouveau drops and crystal or liquid pearls. And I don't have a complete collection of those, but I've got a nice variety of colors. These blues in the front were a Happy Mail gift from my good friend Sharon Barrickman, and I use them all the time. I especially, probably my most used Nouveau drops are these copper. I mean, they are lush. I'm kind of pointing the camera. I'm holding the camera in my right hand, which I think is my steadier hand, and I'm trying to point things out and pick things up with my left. And so the right hand kind of adjusts and moves the camera around. I apologize for that. I don't know, as you know from my videos, I'm not a seasoned expert in camera work or anyway, but I do have a lot of stuff, and now it's where I can find it, or a lot of it is. This rotating stand has structure paste, texture paste, from a variety of sources. These are the Vicki Boutin texture pastes, and then her Create FX. and the Faro paste, which I used in my layout that went live today, the Vicky Bouton pigment powders, and some Nouveau shimmer powders, the Brusho powders, and my first and still my favorite, Color Burst by Ken Oliver. Just absolutely the best applicator, the best bottle, and the best control from the point there. And I am out of a couple colors and I need to replace those, but I feel guilty replacing those when I have these. So I may try to, when I run out of a color, I may try to pour some of this in to that applicator. So wish me luck. And at the class I took with Ken Oliver, he kind of got me hooked on these liquid metals, and that's something else. They've kind of been tucked away, and I haven't used them on mixed media layouts lately. So that's something else I'm gonna dive into. Then down in the, well, over here is the kind of the magic area. This is the area that's closest for me to reach when I'm sitting doing videos. It's where my tweezers are, the popsicle sticks that I use to kind of burnish things down, a few more pencils than I probably need. This is my most used palette knife because it's small and I can get some control over it. I have another pair of tweezers and yet a different kind of tweezers. I have straws to blow bubbles in things, and then this straw has a spoon on the end. I mostly use that for embossing powders, but I've used it for other things too. These are my white and black journaling pens, my credit cards for, or hotel keys, I guess, for spreading gesso on paper and paints and so forth. I've got my two pairs of scissors, one for fussy cutting and one that I can cut metal or objects that will maybe dull it. I've got my tiny attacher, and then I have my little staples here, my corner rounders and extra blades for my trimmer. Over here I have moved all the things that were kind of out, kind of more in the hallway, and I've put all my bags in here, and that bag of bags is going to go somewhere else. It's going to go in a closet in another room. But these are some things that I use, the different crafting mats, and I've got my Misty large and small. And then these paper plates I use kind of as palettes. Sometimes I use this big plastic thing as a palette. So those are kind of some supplies that I use. And the tray that I was going to put my embellishments in is actually my sequins holder now. And so I've got them all. I can store every sequin that I own right here. And I've got room for a few more. These are my packets of the mixes by mostly, I guess they're all by Spiegelbaum Scraps. And these are the original sequins I ever owned. I bought a multicolor set from Martha Stewart, by Martha Stewart, and I didn't buy it from her. And it just had, kind of a various color collection. And as those ran out, I supplemented from other places that I had sequins. And so they still say, and that's what I take with me to retreats if I ever go to a retreat again. Also handy, that's something I need. I've got my two craft mats. I've got the Ken Oliver one, and I've also got the, deep inside here, I've got my Tim Holtz one. The Tim Holtz one's a little bit bigger, so I use it more often. I have kind of some glues back there that when I run out of my primary glue, I'll go back. I've got some Elizabeth Craft rolls of sheet adhesive, and I used to use that when I did my, these are my labels that I put on each layout. I print these up and number them, and then as I do each layout, I cut one label off, fill in the information as to whether there's a video or not, what the challenge was, what the criteria were for the challenge, any extra notes. I'm going to start putting on those notes what album the layout went into, and I'm going to do a better job of actually numbering and indexing my albums, but that's a whole project in and of itself. So anyway, I used to put that sheet adhesive on the back of these, but now I just use my tape runner. And that sheet adhesive, I'm sure, will come in handy for something someday. This is my foam, and then my little bits of foam, my bucket of foam, and I draw from those during every video. These are containers that I just filmed something yesterday that used these sequins, and I dumped them out into this bowl so that I could see what I was reaching for. I use these in filming so that they won't hold anything, and I really need to put those sequins back in the package and put the package back in that to be consistent with that. So this is the heart for me. It's my frequently used stuff. Now, also tackled in this first stage, and I'll bring this over into the light, is this IKEA cart that had mixed media stuff on it, but by no means a comprehensive supply of it. And it was, a lot of it was stuff that that was blocking access to things I wanted to use more often. So we'll go through kind of what my design philosophy was here. Whereas I have my texture pastes and inks and other coloring agents, other types of coloring agents over here, I have my little Amy Tangerine watercolor kit, which serves most of my watercoloring needs. Let me open this up and show you. It has everything in it. Your little wiring colors, you've got your water brush here, you've got this container for water, pencils, a sponge, I think there's a pencil sharpener in here somewhere. So it has everything you would ever need, and I use this a lot because it's easy to reach for. Now I have these pan pastels, I've got Prismacolor pencils, Prismacolor colored pencils that blend so beautifully with Gamsol. My just standard pan, this is my heavily used pan, I use that a lot too. These are some water-soluble wax pastels, and I got those before I had the crayons that are in here. And this contains Vicki Boutin's crayons and some distress crayons and some really amazing artist crayons. These that I don't have a whole lot of. They're Neocolor 2 Aquarelle, water-soluble wax pastel, kind of labeled the same as those others. But these are expensive and definitely artist quality, and I used to use them a lot, but then they kind of got hidden. So I'm planning to haul those out again. there's a little set of those in another case inside here. So I'll definitely be pulling those out soon. I love coloring agents, as you can see. I have two sets of water brushes, different types of water brushes, and I will freely admit to never having opened this package. I found it at Tuesday Morning, I think, for $10, and I thought that was a good price, since back in the day I used to pay $5 each for these. This one is the one I've had the longest. I bought one of these for me and one for Ava several years ago, and I've used them a lot, but not in the last couple of years. So that's not something I've used on videos. This is some heavy gesso in black and heavy gesso in white. My preferred gessos, although down here in the bottom, I have a whole slew of different gessos and my moldable texture paste right here, which is my go-to stuff. And the rest of this, here's some clear gesso. There's also Vicky Bouton's white gesso. This is my thick Bo Bunny white gesso that I used to get some texture in my video for Scrap Academy last week. And there's Mod Podge, which I used to use with the kids a lot, and a lot of gel mediums that I use to cover art journal pages, to protect them, to keep all of the texture elements and the color elements kind of in place. I've got a whole box of brayers, some textured and some flat and plain. I've got more texture pastes back in here. They're really more like paints. And I've got some alcohol and more credit cards. These are things that I showed you in the other video. I have no idea how to use them. They're Spectrum Noir sparkles, and I've got several sparkly things kind of in here. These are like, I don't know if you know, Perfect Pearls and Inca Gold. These are kind of paste type colors. I'm opening one up here. You can kind of see what that is. It's intense, and I usually apply it with my fingers. I'm having trouble holding the camera in one hand and opening that up, but I saw someone do something with these. I had to have them. I did a couple things in my art journal, haven't used them on a page. Something else I need to do. Perfect Pearls, very similar. Inca Gold by Viva Decor. Distressed Crackle Paint, not really in that category, but I have two colors of that, and I put it right there. I've got some art anthology paints here that tend to have a kind of a translucent glittery shine. Then I have this incredible milk paint, which is really wonderful just to mix up with some water and get on your paintbrush and do splatters. It makes really, really good opaque kind of textural splatters. So this is my cart. I don't use all of these things every day. This has my palette knives and my brushes. I've got kind of a collection of brushes there, and none of them are expensive. None of them are fancy. One of my most used brushes is this kind of messed up one. I think this was one of Ava's brushes, but I use it to create kind of textural effects by dabbing, powder things on wet things and, stuff like that. It's a brush that's meant to be, let's see if I can show it here, kind of just mooshed down and spread out, and it gives an interesting starbursty sort of effect, if that's a word. And let's see, what else is there to show here? This is primarily what I worked on. Now you may recall that the table had a big okay, let me show you some of the things that got displaced. In order to make room for all of that, I got rid of these 3 boxes. They still have everything in them that they always had, and I'll address that when I do embellishments, and that's maybe not section 2, but section 3, because section 2 is going to be turning this, which is really my husband's workshop table. I'm going to be turning this into a cutting station. And so there's a lot of this that's going to have to move around, and I had to make space in the closet that I'm getting ready to show you next. So this is a colossal mess. I still can use my Vagabond here. It works here, and I've got my laptop plugged in here because I've kind of revived in the course of all of this, clearing out the closet, one of the things in the closet was my big 27-inch Mac, and it occurred to me as I looked at it, oh my gosh, that has outdated software, which probably would still work with my scanner, and then my scanner wouldn't be the huge paperweight that it is now. So I pulled it out, and it certainly does work with my scanner. And not only that, the version that it has of Photos does some things that the newer version of Photos does not have. And the word processing system allows some effects like a kind of a torn effect on the outside of Photos, which I used for a layout just day before yesterday. This cabinet right here, and I'm going to kind of sit down to show you that. This had it's right across from my kitchen, and it had in it some placemats and fabric-y kinds of things, for lack of a better word. So I have filled it with mixed media stuff, including the bottom part down there is everything to do with embossing. It's got all of my embossing enamels, the embossing powders, and it's got my catch trays. It's got my the pen that writes it's like a Versamark pen, so you can write something and then put the embossing powder on it. It's got my little chalk bag that keeps things from that gets rid of static. This is kind of a miscellaneous mixed bag. It's got some templates of hearts and an airplane and things like that, and it also has my jelly plate and some papers. This area here has my metal flakes, the Nouveau, what are they called? Gilding flakes. And again, something I used a lot when I first got them and haven't used. And of course, just this one container is meant to last for like 17 years or something. And these are like bottle tops that I use to make circles. I use them for, hitting some paint or ink and things. So I had those, just miscellaneous things, and I've got Q-tips in there and just a whole slew. I've got extra bottles for water, just miscellaneous mixed media supplies. These are texturizing elements, including some netting from some tulle, I guess it is, from a fabric store. And this is burlap, makes great texture, either pressed down into texture paste or covered with texture paste or medium. and glued to your paper. And this yellow stuff is actually netting that was used to reinforce the concrete and the sealant that they put out in the garden, because the garden was leaking through the foundation into the basement, which is where we live. And so when that was done, that was what was left of the roll. And then this is a box of foam makeup sponges and other kinds of foam things that are used in mixed media. And I know what these things are and now where they are. A lot of these things were in the cart that I reorganized, and now they're here. And these things don't need to be within sight of the kitchen, and they may move into the closet. I'm not quite sure, or I may move them further down the way when we move the bicycle and the chair that turns into a bed upstairs into the rec room that James has, that used to be his living room. So they're here for now, and they're handy enough. I don't access these things very often, but I know where they are and I know how to get them. So now it's a question of, can this old body get up from where I was sitting? So moving down, something I did not address this time were these ink towers. I do plan to move them over to the cutting station if there's room when I put my silhouette, which is still down there on the kitchen shelf. And it's okay. These are not inks that I access as often as others. I've gotten this glue pad I do use a lot, and this is the glue that re-inks it in a way. And so I may want to move these two things over into my primary storage, but we'll see. Okay, let's see. And also you can see I have not fixed the sewing machine, but I do have the video, the DVD, the video. Hopefully that will teach me. Okay, going past that, we get to the closet now. So look at here, you can see the floor. I have moved that triple tier tray of paints in here without actually editing the contents at all. Just haven't gotten to that yet. And it's okay with me to have it in here now. These things, these are stamps that I use for cards and layouts, and I kind of need to address how they're stored. These stamps are ones that I used for mixed media, and as are the things in this box. And so these need to go out closer to where I am. And my other stamps are kind of filed by category in these clamshell holders. Let me see if I can find one of those. These are some stamps that I made by cutting and carving some stuff. So I have the stamps in here. I've stamped on the paper what the images are that are inside, and this will of course go in the mixed media box. So I haven't moved more markers in here because I really haven't cleared enough space. These are the stamps I've used recently in the challenge. So lots of reorganizing that needs to go on here, and that has to be done before I move things off of what is going to become my cutting station. So this will be addressed in staged in episode 2, if you will, and the cutting station. So I'll be going from one end of those two. Oh, here's some of the clamshells. I've actually saved some from some smaller ones, and then I've got these, a few more of these 8.5 by 11 ones that fit nicely into 8.5 by 11 holders from IKEA, just cardboard. And I got started on a project of actually using some of the stamps and making labels, and I didn't finish, and I've ended up with lots of sticky notes. And then I kind of put on my Stampers Anonymous stamps and my Tim Holtz Crazy stamps and some Dilution stamps, and I forget what that is. And then I have Wendy Vecchi in her separate book, and then I've got all my Lawn Fawn stamps up in here because I usually get the dies with the Lawn Fawn stamps. Again, back in my heavy card making days. So I will address all of that, maybe not completely, but at least enough to get my primary emphasis will be not to address stamp storage, but to make this into a cutting station, and that means getting everything out of here that doesn't have anything to do with cutting. That stuff down at the bottom there, that's all embellishment stuff. That'll be in another episode. And all the kind of keepsakey stuff that I have up on the windowsill, I think it's time for that to go. That whole idea, as you can see, a lot of that's left from Ava, and she decorated that bottle with washi tape, and I just have never had the heart to do anything with it. And that jeweled case top, something we got at Pier 1 years and years and years ago. She loved it. And so the only thing that will probably stay up there is is this guy. So we'll see where all this belongs next time. So I hope you're getting a few ideas. I'd like to hear back from you what you think of doing this way, having a before video and then an after video, and maybe when I post, I'll have some process type photos, and I'll maybe try to do something like an outline or some description of the process I used, because to be honest, this all went a lot faster and with a happier outcome than I expected. And as you know, my objective is to put things that I need to reach close by, arrange the other things that I use periodically so that I know where to get them, so that I can bring them to the table to use when I craft or film or both, and not to spend any money, to use containers and furniture that I already have. So not a dime is going to be spent, just some elbow grease. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate your support, and be sure and let me know if you think this is useful at all. Bye.